Welcome to the BassandBigG.com Guntersville Grassroots Podcast. It's March 7th of 2022. My name's Pat Kennemer. I'm your host. I'm here with my co-host, Trey Swindle. It's finally warming up for a few days. Probably going to get cold again. And as Trey likes to say,
still floating grass out there.
Still floating grass. The last 2 weeks have been pretty active. When we left y'all, we had the Toyota Series starting, I think, the next day. It was a 3-day deal. Trey and I kind of called that. We said, they're letting them lock through. That could be a player. And the guy almost won.
He did. If it wouldn't have been for the flood, he was
going to blow it out.
He would have took it home at Wheeler.
Yeah, he was going to blow it out. And who would have thought that? Well, we kind of thought it, but just because of the timing of the year. But who would have thought that a Guntersville tournament was going to be won on Wheeler? But that guy, I don't know him. I think he might be a former ABT guy. I heard some of them say.
Yeah, and he's good at what he does. He likes current. He's a river guy, and I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that you have a tournament on one of the best lakes in the country, and somebody almost wins it, would have won it, locking through to Wheeler. It's kind of crazy, but he's probably one of the best around here at what he does, and he proved it. I mean, the flood just got to him, and he told him. I heard that he had told him after the second day weigh-in. He said, "Ain't no way I win." He said, "There's no way." He said, "I couldn't hardly hold myself there the second day," and he said they're going to be running like 150,000 out of the dam cubic feet per second, or however they do it. But he said, like, there's no way I can hold myself. And he said he did. He went down there and locked through, and he just couldn't sit there. He didn't have no backup plan, really. He just
right. He's friends with Luke, right? Mm-hmm. Luke Duncan.
Yep.
Yeah. I rode down to the dam the second day about lunchtime because I was like, I wonder how many people are really down there. Well, I get down there was only one boat there at the time, which I found out later after seeing pictures was him. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. While I was the 30 seconds that I was there was 2 or 3 others pull up. I heard that between day 2 and 3, which it rained like 4 inches that night, I heard the water behind the dam came up like 8 feet.
Yeah, somebody told me that it come up 2 feet while he was sitting down there. That's what he said.
On the second day.
On the second day.
It was rolling, dude. It looked like a whitewater rapid. I wouldn't.
Yep.
And he wasn't way up on the dam. He was back a ways, but I mean, it was rolling.
Yep.
And
that just goes to show you though that Guntersville wasn't. I mean, the weights look good and everything, but you know how it is. Normally, somebody like that's a real good fisherman can stay in Guntersville that third day and just catch enough to survive. But he couldn't. I think he weighed in one fish the last day.
That's right. He ended
one
up,
fish
and came in 5th. So,
yeah.
Here in just a little bit, we're going to have the winner of that event, a gentleman named Kent Ware. We're going to have him on to talk to us today. Before we do that, we're going to have the winner of the MLF College tournament this past weekend. On one of the team, we're going to have him on. It was a young man named Seth Slanker, I believe, from Florida Gateway College. So one of the Florida boys came up here and beat down on him. That Toyota Series, Casey Martin, there's that name we've talked about in our first 2. Yep. He was 1 bite away from, and his co-angler in the Toyota Series, his co-angler won.
Did he really?
His co-angler caught a 7 something that last day.
That's what I think at 21-11 the third day. I see.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, Charlie Krause. So I don't know if you saw this or not. They wrote an article talking to him, or maybe it was an interview I saw. He was on the waiting list for a co-angler, and he almost didn't come when they called him.
Really?
Yeah, he lives somewhere over around Waterloo, Pickwick area, and they said, he said they called, and I'm like, well, it's last minute. I really don't need to do that, and then he said he put his rods in the truck and went, well, no, I don't need to do that, and then he came, and then look at that,
then he won.
Yeah, then he won. Yeah, I mean, of course, a lot of that, the last day he whacked them. Yeah,
but for a co-angler to catch 45 pounds 8 ounces for 3 days out of the back of somebody's boat, that's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's really good.
And you fishing behind somebody, like Casey Martin, and catch that.
Yeah, he said that third day, Casey kept getting stronger. If you look, he 1813, 1802, and then 2012. And I did not go look and see what his other co-anglers had done, but I'm sure they probably caught him too. I mean, he and Mr. Ware. He got stronger. He was pretty, and he said something about, it's consistent. And he had something interesting that he told me. I don't know if he'll say this when we get him on the air or not, but he said something interesting about he was fishing pretty shallow, and he said the fish had moved out he thought the pressure did it more than water. Interestingly enough, it didn't get too muddy, but he was being stealthy like a deer hunter. He said, I wasn't letting people slap traps on the water to knock the grass off. He said, I felt like the fish got spooky. As long as I've done this, I never really put a lot of thought into that. Maybe I need to be a little quieter when you're fishing in 3 foot water. So, those guys had a little bit of every kind of weather.
They did.
And, you had that Toyota Series. You had an Airport Marine. You had an Airport Marine tournament the weekend after that. It was a 2-day. Somewhere I printed out those results and do not have them here in front of me. I don't think I gave you a copy. That was off a little. That was Fisher Anaya, which I think you said you knew the dad. Yep. They had a 2-day weight of 38.46, but I think they had a big bag the last day.
I think they had almost 26 the second day.
Yeah.
They, 12 something the first day?
Right. Yeah. This particular thing didn't break it down, but also that same day, you had a Blount County Rescue Squad tournament out of the state park, and that was Saturday the 26th, and it was cold.
Yep.
Cold enough that this old man said, I'm not going fishing. I think I'm going to stay home. But Stephen McAvoy and Josh Butts had 33.12 that day. There's the dirty 30 bag.
Yep.
I mean, and I believe they're ABT guys.
They are. And anytime ABT or anything big comes to Guntersville in February, this time of the year, really the next 2 months, Josh Butts is probably going to win.
Bridge fish.
I know he does love to bridge fish, and he ain't scared to tell you, but I don't know how he does it. He might be sneaky and go somewhere else after, but he does.
He may tell you they were bridge fish and go do something else.
That's right. But he's a stand-up guy. He'll just about tell you how he caught him every time you see him, but he's good.
He is good.
He's real good.
Yeah. That had another little high school tournament, which those things are. I think there's one just about every weekend from now till May. It was a small one out of County Park, but still took 22-15 to win. Had a NBT National Bass Trail Guntersville District out of Waterfront. 21-14 won that. A guy named Randy Brock, and then Mike Garland with 18.76. One thing I want to touch on before we move on to the next weekend. Back to the smallmouth. Mm-hmm. Kay Donaldson that runs Alabama Bass Trail does a phenomenal job with that, and a very, very connected lady. She does a podcast with Chris Brown that's on the ABT. I don't know if you ever listened to it or not.
I think I've listened to one or two of them.
I'll be honest with you. Until about 2 or 3 months ago, I hardly ever listened to podcasts, and then somehow I said, hey, let's do a podcast. So I started listening. I kind of became a little bit of a junkie on them. I found that one. It's really good. They probably don't even know we exist, but it's really good. If you hadn't heard it, you should go listen to it. She was fired up about those smallmouth getting brought from Wheeler and not being carried back to Wheeler. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't thought about it that way. She grew up, I think she's a Decatur native, and she grew up and she was frustrated about that. But she reached out to, she knows people. She knows the area biologists and those kind of people. And something interesting that she said on there about that was one of the TVA people that she talked to, in TVA's mind, they look at the Tennessee River system as one whole entity. Those dams don't mean anything to them.
Yep.
But, you get below Guntersville Dam, it's a totally different ecosystem than what we've got here.
Yep, for sure.
I wish there was a way to know if those fish went back.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I did have a bass tag get caught that I let go at Browns Creek on February 11th, get caught around Preston Island this weekend. That's 20 miles.
Yep. So that's crazy.
Well, we're going to kick on to the college tournament out of the state park. Was that next weekend. 219 boats. And they were biting pretty good. 10 20-pound bags. 18-11 to get 20th place. Those college guys, man, of course, they get to come in here and practice for several days. It'd almost be like being Trey Swindle and get to go fish 4 or 5 days in a row.
That's right. So. Typical fashion for me. Well, gas prices, the way they're doing, I'm going to have to
We're going to touch on that here in a little while. So we're going to touch on that. I was looking at the results from that, and I'm like, man, those guys, they hit it just right. Matter of fact, the guys that won that they were from Florida. Seth Slanker and Jackson Swisher. They both need to go pro. Those are very much pro names. They're going to stand out to anybody. $29.12. That's a great big bag.
It is.
And let's see what else we had. Cattle. No, there wasn't. The local guys didn't really. I mean, you had a UNA group, Chandler Brewer, which may be that Nathan Brewer's grandson. I think he fished as a co-angler in that Toyota Series.
I see Garrett Warren. He fishes for Auburn, but he fishes up here all the time.
Does he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of those Auburn guys showed up at the tournament this past weekend. That Saturday, that little 43 boat Sylvania Rams Bass Classic they had this past Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Leary. Again, another of those names we've mentioned every time we've talked.
Yep.
Jim and his partner Eric Wilson won that with 22-1. Clearly, there was a difference in the fish biting between Friday and Saturday because all the weights were off on Saturday. I've always felt like Friday fish on Guntersville were better than Saturday.
That's right. I mean, that's why I fish Monday through Friday and work Saturday, Sunday.
And I don't do TikTok particularly, but I got an email or a text or something that had a TikTok on it, and it pulled it up on a browser, and so I'm like, let's see what Trey's up to. I pulled up Trey's TikTok, and he's walking about something about a full-time job and going fishing, and a whole lot of people are about to lose their job. That was pretty funny. If you haven't seen that, check out Trey's TikTok. That was pretty interesting. He I'm not sure what ramp that was.
Waterfront.
Yep. I didn't look that close, but it was a Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, and there was a lot more people fishing than there was on Saturday.
You ain't lying.
This past Saturday, the one thing that did change was the wind. And I know you got to play at Waterfront Saturday. I'm sure you know. I saw you in there, but it went from being nice and light to blowing a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it blew my basketball goal over, my kid's basketball goal over.
You know, it was rough out there, and I think it was blowing out of the southeast?
Southeast.
Straight up the lake.
Well, it was a little across.
Yeah.
The southwest really gets straight up the lake. Straight up the lake with that wind and the 95,000 they were pulling, you'd have broke something.
Yep.
It got rough enough that it was hard to fish. I mean, you could have gone to the south side of the river and found some floating grass.
Yep.
But it was pretty tough. So we had Nathan Hutchinson and Tom Womack got second in that Sylvania Rams with 1975. And here's another one of those familiar names we keep mentioning, Johnny Patterson and Johnny Patterson and his partner Brian got third. And then Cam Busby and Chandler Brewer, which were in an Auburn boat, by the way. The college boys hung around to play with a Guntersville fish one more day. Had 1805 and got fourth. ABA couples the same day. Freddie and Billy Hunt. I think he might have won the last one we talked about, that ABA couples. I remember I said the guy told me he was good for 15 pounds. Well, he did it again, and it was enough.
Yeah.
And then Ken and Pam Draskovic had a 1533, and he caught a tag.
Oh, really?
Yep, he was registered, and I talked to him yesterday. He caught a tag. We've had 4 caught in the first 5-6 days. It may slow down a bit this week because the weather looks terrible.
Yeah.
But and then the guy that runs ABA and his partner, Rhonda, they had 9.5 pounds. It was pretty tough. Even up at Mud Creek, which is normally the hot spot this time of year, you know, they had 17 or 18 boats, and it was 17.61, 17.55. Honeycomb was 18.88. I mean, Saturday was just a different day. It was. I was hoping to have the results for the Heartland that was yesterday. I did not. He said he was going to text them to me. I hadn't got them yet. But,
I almost fished that, and
did you?
I wimped out on them.
You wimped out. Well, that wind was kicking yesterday too.
Yeah, and I went yesterday, but I just kind of fished around out of the wind. So
did you catch them?
I caught them okay, not as good as I had been, but like I said, I didn't fish as much as I have been either. I just kind of got out of the wind places. I think the 5 or 6 bites I had they were all big ones, but I didn't get as many bites as I had been getting out there in that offshore grass, you know.
Yeah, tell us what you caught last week. I heard you had some pretty good days.
Yeah, so I went, like I said, I made that TikTok. I forgot I had a full-time job, and I fished Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I had to suck it up and go to work Friday, Saturday, and then I fished Sunday. But
that was at your part-time job, not your full-time.
Yep, and that's funny how the 2 days I decided to work, I worked my part-time job. But so I had over 20 pounds on my scale every day. I talked Luke Duncan into coming down with me one day, and we caught a lot of numbers, not as many big ones, but
we can't say what day because he was supposed to be working.
Yeah, because he was supposed to be working, but I mean that could have been last Sunday. Y'all don't know that.
That's right.
But so we caught it pretty good all week. I think there was one day I had just a tick over 20, somewhere between 20 and 21, but for the most part they were all over 20 pound days. So
spill the beans. Give us a little bit about what you were catching them on.
Well, you putting me on the spot here.
Absolutely.
Well, the first little bit I caught them on a square bill in the grass, and then I caught most of the numbers on a rattle trap.
Did you?
Yep, I caught all the numbers on a rattle trap, but the bigger ones seemed to come on a chatterbait. So just slow rolling it, which to me it seems to be. That's kind of, I don't know. I want to ask some questions when we get the guy who won the Toyota Series on here about what he thinks about this. But for some reason, it feels like it got warm so fast that the fish haven't noticed it yet. I feel like they should already be spawning. They should be, in the dirt up there. But I just feel like they're behind. Like the way I'm catching them on some of that offshore grass is just, which I get they stage up and pre-spawn out there too. But I just feel like they're behind a little bit.
Yeah, well, it went from being 45 to 55 to high to being 80. Mm-hmm. And the real important factor towards the end of the week were those overnight lows.
Yep.
When it stops getting, below 40 or 50 or 45, 3 or 4 nights in a row we had 45, even one night 60. When I got up Saturday morning to go fishing, it was like 60. I'm like, wow, that's way too warm.
Yep.
Of course, little did I know the wind was going to blow 30 miles an hour, and I never would.
That's right. But that's one thing I noticed when I started catching them. Like, it blew my mind because I was looking where I thought they should be, and then, I just randomly stopped on a place I caught them last year, and then they were there, and I was like, they just don't make no sense. Like, why are they here? They should be farther along than this. But in the famous words of my Uncle G, it doesn't have to make sense.
I was just about to say that. You told me he said that one day.
Yep.
You're like, it doesn't have to make sense. Fish are where you find them.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said it just don't have to make sense. It don't matter where you are. If they're there, they're there. It don't really have to make sense to catch them. So he's got a good point.
Well, how many tournaments get won in places that they weren't supposed to be there?
Yep, a lot.
That's kind of the way it works out. Well, let's see if we can get our guest, Mr. Seth Slanker, on real quick. Seth, are you on with us?
Yes, I am.
Hey, we've got Seth Slanker. He was the one of the winning team on the Major League Fishing College tournament this past Saturday. We're going to let him talk a little bit about where he's from, him and his partner. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
We're from Lake City, Florida, just north of Gainesville. We're a small town here, and we've got we had a strong high school season and high school team, and we started this team up at Florida Gateway College, and recruited about 10 kids from all around the state that we thought would be good around on the college level, and we got a pretty good team, and we've been pretty good this year. We've had an amazing year.
So we're recruiting for college fishing now?
Well, we did when we first started the college. Me and my partner were the first ones on, and they asked us who we thought were going to be the best for us.
Sure. So, had you ever been to Guntersville before?
Oh, yes, sir. I have one time last year, and it was in mid-April.
A little bit different.
Yes,
yeah.
They were more on the bed, more spawning fish than this time.
Right. So you guys caught a monster bag.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was our best bag. We fished in Florida a lot, and our best bag was 27, 29 or something. We caught that back in our high school days, 3 or 4 years ago. So we haven't caught anything like this in a long time.
And I watched the weigh-in. I kind of saw part of the weigh-in. I saw part of I think I saw when you guys weighed, but I didn't ever get to hear. Did you have a big fish, or did you just have a lot of 5 to 6 pounders?
We had an 8-pounder, and we had 2 6s and 2 5s. So I mean, give or take, we had one like 415 or 414 or something. So that we didn't quite have 30, but we were right there at it.
I do want to ask you a question, too. I know you're from Florida, and as everybody knows, in Florida, there's a lot of grass. Just for the people who don't know, I kind of found it out for myself this year. Sadly, I didn't want to go to Florida. But does Guntersville grass set up like where you're from? Like, do you feel like you were kind of comfortable here, or is it different?
Yes, yeah, it sets up pretty good. We have a bunch of shallow flats. We have a bunch of eelgrass up here, or down here. So we that's what going in a tournament, we thought about starting offshore, pre-spawn, post-spawn fish, or pre-spawn fish mainly, being in Guntersville. And that's what the fish down here in Florida are on the bed right now. So we were just going to try and carry that up there. And check the weather and the warming trend. That's what we started practicing for, the warming trend, because I figured the first wave would be pulling up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the eelgrass and everything else in Guntersville set up just like North Florida. We've got hydrilla, eelgrass, things like that.
I hope you brought some hydrilla with you. I miss it. Look.
There's not very much of that out here no more. It's just
this eelgrass, whatever it is, has just taken over, as you saw. So,
Yes, sir.
how many days did you practice?
We got there Sunday night, so we were there 4 days. 4 days.
Did you find those fish? Did you find them pretty quick, or did it take you a while?
It took us quite a while. We tried doing the pre-spawn fish offshore on the eelgrass and fishing shallow humps with a rattle trap, and that we just couldn't get that fired up for us as the week went on. Monday we caught about 15 pounds on 4. We only had 4 bites all day, and then Tuesday we just couldn't pattern it out. So the warming trend kind of warmed up, and we just kind of moved with the fish, or what we thought with the fish we're going to be doing.
That's awesome. Like I said, I was out there pretty much that whole week also, and I don't know about you. I kind of know a little bit about how you caught them, but for me, like you said, those shallow flats and stuff, like I felt like for me, when I found them, they were like gobbed up. Like I could probably, like I sat out there on Tuesday, I think, and caught like 40 on one place. But then when I leave there and start running around, like I could go 3 hours and not get a bite.
It's because they were all in one spot.
I guess it's because they were all in one spot. But like, was that kind of the same way for y'all? Is it, or did y'all find multiple places?
No, that was the exact same way for us. So we found that one little pocket that we caught 29 pounds out of, and we got 4 or 5 bites in there in practice. But then we tried patterning it out. We tried going into other coves and fishing the same stuff, just on a different side of the river or the creek. Mm-hmm. And we could run around in practice and catch like a 3 or 4 pounder. It would be a keeper. It would be a good fish, but we'd only get 1 bite in one area. Mm-hmm. And we just couldn't get more than 1 or 2 bites in one area, which was just crazy to me. I mean, I figured you get in a cove and you can get 1 4-pounder bite. Why can't there be several others,
Well, yeah, that's exactly how it was for me. And I talked to you a little bit before we got on air, but like that's how, when I found that one spot, like I caught them every cast for like as long as I wanted to stay there. And I'm like, man, I'm going to crush them. I run all over the lake to every single flat pocket that I knew, thinking they were going to be on every one of them. And like, that was the only one I found. Like you said, I could catch one here and there, and I'd put the poles down and think it was fixing to go down, and I just couldn't do it. I had one place on the whole entire lake that was like that.
That's exactly right. We tried patterning it out. We tried running, the water was pretty dirty earlier in the week, and that we still could catch a 3 or 4 pounder everywhere we ran, but we'd catch one.
Yep.
In the back of a cove, and it would be all the way into the back. I was like, when we did get that bite, I figured we were about to catch 4 or 5 out of here, but it just didn't happen like that. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. So the day of the tournament, did you just kind of hunker down on one spot and sit there, or did you just kind of stumble into that and really catch them good that day?
Well, in that cove that we found in practice, we caught, that was our most fish caught in one area. It was that cove in practice. So we went back there, and first fish was a 5-pounder, and I was like, well, dang. I mean, we trying to shake them off in practice on a chatterbait was like trying to shake one off with a rattle trap. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, if they're eating it,
they were swallowing it. I have pictures of it. You can't even see the chatterbait. It was gone. And so we started in that cove that morning, and it just got to a point where why leave? I mean, this spot was just ridiculous. In Florida, you can come down and catch some fish like that on shallow flats like that, but I haven't found a spot in Florida that had that much weight on it. Like, there was another kid in there that caught 20 pounds right beside us. So, I mean, we're fishing the same fish, but it's just insane, that small of an area, and it being that shallow in there with it holding that big of fish.
How deep of water was it?
It was about 1.5 feet, 2 foot, after the water had went down all week.
Right. So how deep of water was the boat sitting in, though?
We were still in about, we were kicking the whole time.
You were in a flat.
I was about to say,
you were skinny.
The flat I was fishing, like I could put my poles down and you could still see the whole entire pole. Like, yeah, I mean, it was like, it didn't even really go down. I mean, you could trim down and it'd be a power pole too. You'd have 3 of them. Like they were really, really shallow. So
there wasn't a whole lot of grass in that shallow water, was it? I mean, just clumpy.
For me, like in mine, I don't know about y'all's, but there was grass, but it was just it was almost aggravating to fish because it was so shallow you couldn't hardly reel anything fast enough to get it through there. But they didn't seem to mind it. You could reel it as fast as you wanted to, and they'd get it. How was it for y'all?
That's the exact same way. If we could keep that chatterbait above the eelgrass, there was about a 6 to 6 inches to a foot between the eelgrass and the top of the water,
Mm-hmm.
And if you could keep that bait, just steady retrieve, they will come out of that eelgrass. I don't know if there was some sand pockets in there, like the fish were sitting in the sand pockets, and they would come up and crush that chatterbait. You could reel it as fast as you can, and they would come up and destroy it.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that was kind of aggravating during the tournament. We had the wind blowing in there. Well, it was blowing all the eelgrass that was being tore up and blowing in there to us. So our line we always had to be ripping that chatterbait. After a few days of that last week, my arm is so sore. Like today, I could feel it the worst. Yesterday and today, my arm is completely.
Hey, we have to do that all year here. Is there not floating eelgrass everywhere in Florida? Y'all need to take some of that with you.
Yeah, floating eelgrass in Guntersville was the leading cause of domestic violence. So if you didn't figure that out in the 4 days you were here.
Yes, it is bad there.
It's different. It's turning into a problem for everybody. But the fish like the stuff.
They love it. They love it. It was ridiculous how many fish we caught in that shallow of a flat.
When you're talking about grass that's less than 8-10 inches under the surface, some of those fish you caught, so one of the fins wasn't sticking out of the water.
Exactly.
That's how my all week for me was too. It's like I could have swore you could have seen them eat it. Like that's how. If
you should have been able to see the fish.
Yeah, like it was crazy.
Well, we left that area about, I don't know, it was about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. We had what we had at 10:30, 10 or 10:30. We caught them that quick. So we left and went to go do some of our junk fishing just to kind of give the spot a little break,
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed in that creek and we came back into the cove, and I went in there real shallow, and I could see fish just cruising everywhere. I mean, they were I think they were pulling up on the beds, on them sandy spots to spawn at the end of the day.
Yeah, and now it's raining and going to get cold again. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
That's right. That's like, that reminds me, Luke Duncan always says when the warming train comes in, like at Guntersville, and he said in Florida too, he said it looks like SeaWorld. You can just see them all swimming at the same time. And that's exactly what that reminded me of. When it gets warm and stays warm for a week and the lows get in the 60s, but we were talking about that before we got you on here, and they come running. Just as quick as it gets warm, they're there.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, they're up there waiting, and they'll get up there just in time for Mother Nature or TVA one to throw them a curveball.
That's right.
Because TVA will jerk the water down in a heartbeat.
And they have the past 2 days.
Yes, they have.
Yes. And that's and one day, one of the days in practice when we found that spot, it was higher. It was much higher. And it was kind of that there was a kind of a point in that cove. Well, by the time the tournament became, we started getting worried about there not being enough water in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we started sweating that because of how much water they were pulling. I mean, it was, I think I counted it right. It was 6 to 8 inches of water a day.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the week last week.
Oh yeah, we were coming off a big flood. I mean, y'all got here at the peak.
Yeah,
and they were really cranking current, and it depends on both dams, not just one. But it'll and TVA will drop it on you overnight in a heartbeat. So.
That's what they do it. They've done it to me so much. Every time I find somewhere like that at Guntersville, like on a super shallow flat like that, the first thing I look for is where they're going next, because I know TVA is fixing to pull it. It don't matter what time of the year it is. If I find them somewhere like that, they're pulling it. So I'm just like you said, I'm looking for the next point, the closest, deepest water, so on and so forth. Luckily, y'all didn't have to really make any adjustments. I think y'all timed it just right, because now I don't know if it would have enough water on it right now.
That's what I was exactly about to say. We went, and the day before the tournament, we went to just go check it, make sure there was water in there,
Mm-hmm.
And we went in there. There was enough water that we thought we could catch some fish in it. So we backed off a little bit on the offshore eelgrass flat, and didn't get a bite. So we were like, well, I guess if those fish are still in there, and we lose enough water that we can't get into those fish, we can try and pull out here and see if the fish backed off, offshore
Mm-hmm.
a little ways, because it just scared us because of them dropping the water so fast.
Absolutely.
And apparently it didn't scare the fish, thankfully, for you that day. They may have left you. Well, you may have carried them all with you. You and the other guy that were in there, y'all may have took them all to the state park.
It sounds like there was so many you couldn't scare them all off.
I hadn't found that spot yet this year.
After us and the other kid left, we went back in there, like I said, and there were still hundreds and hundreds of fish back in there. It was just insane.
That is insane. You
clean
just
the cove out,
Yep.
You hit it perfect. You hit it perfect. So, you said chatterbait. I'm assuming it was red.
Yes, sir. It was the fire crawl jackhammer, the real red one.
Yeah.
Red.
Yeah.
We were throwing the Z-Man goat on it, and that goat, I think we went through one all week. Never tore it. That Elastec was the deal.
Yeah, and the goat is also the one with a two tails on it, right?
Right.
So I'm sure you know this, but for those of you who don't know, when you're fishing that shallow, it kind of stuck out to me that he said that, because if you throw a regular Zaco or like the Strike King, the Bladed Minnow or whatever, it kind of sinks. But if you throw something with two tails and it's got some kick, it actually makes the bait rise, or a paddle tail in general. So when you're that shallow, I'm sure that's kind of what y'all's thoughts were too on that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It just lifts the bait for us to get in that top water column.
Yeah, you don't have to reel it as fast, to get it through there and make it aggravating on yourself.
And were you throwing a 1/2 ounce, 3/8?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We were throwing a 1/2 ounce, just trying to
cranking it,
crank it, ripping as hard as we can. And I didn't throw that 3/8 much in there. I just wanted to throw that half because that's what we got bit on the most. I even tried picking up the new big bladed Z-Man chatterbait.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't throw it quite enough like I should have, but that 1/2 ounce is just dominating any other one.
You sound like me. When I get a bite in practice, if it's a half or whatever it is, I'm not changing.
Can't throw anything else.
If I catch them on it in practice, I don't even care. If they're biting a 3/8, I just won't weigh in one.
Exactly.
Well,
that's exactly how we were.
If you get around a group with that many fish, you could probably throw a shoelace out there and catch one. Yeah, but
I feel like if you had a cast net, you could have probably weighed in about 36.
Exactly right. And that's the thing. We never lost any big. I mean, we lost one here and there, but none that would have helped us, I don't think. We started catching 3s and 4s that weren't even helping us. 4.5 pounder that wasn't even helping us. So I mean,
that's a good day.
We got to a point where, yes, sir, it was an amazing day. We got to a point where we didn't know if we could get another big bite in there.
Did you feel like you had it won? I mean, that's a big bag. That's the second biggest bag we know of in February and March, on Guntersville. So did you, of course, college guys tend to catch them when they come here and fish for a week, but
we didn't know we would win with it, but as the week went on, we kind of thought the fishing was tougher than it usually is this time of year. So we knew somebody would have to really, really catch them to beat 29 pounds.
Oh yeah.
If I had 29 pounds by 10:30, everybody in Guntersville would have known it. I would have went to Fire by the Lake and ate lunch, and then I'd have rode to the weigh-in and told the tournament director we're fixing to have a party. I don't care if I come in 2nd or 14th. I'm fixing to throw a party. I do want to point out, though, right quick, I do see where it looks like, unless I'm sure it's correct, Chase Hubble and Brent May, looks like they're from the same college you are. They come in 12th.
Yes, sir. So we were, that's actually the kids that were in there with us. They were on our team. Well, they hadn't qualified for the national championship yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we told them in practice, we gave them a waypoint and told them to go check it out and not fish it.
Mm-hmm.
We caught some pretty decent fish in practice in there. So they said by 9 o'clock or 8 or 9 o'clock, I can't remember what they told us. If they haven't had 5 good ones yet, because they had a pretty good offshore flat they were throwing a rattle trap on, to come in that cove where we were at and throw a chatterbait.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had about 8:30 or 9 o'clock, we had 22 plus. And by the time they got in there, they only had one fish. So they got in there about 8:30 or 9, and they caught 20 pounds in there right beside us.
That's insane.
When you say right beside you, how far away?
A cast distance.
So y'all were throwing at a spot. You weren't fishing a 100-yard stretch. You were throwing at a spot.
I will give you a 100-yard stretch about 50 to 80 yards wide, because the cove kind of opened up,
Right.
And the eelgrass flat was all in the middle, and we were fishing the middle. We weren't fishing the bank. We were fishing the middle of this cove.
Guntersville for several years now has become one of those lakes where you're either all over them or it feels like there's not a fish in the lake. Trey just said it. I mean, he went fishing somewhere else. Now, you said it. You catch one here, one there.
Yep.
And those one here, one there, if somebody else caught that fish before you got there, it's nothing.
Yep.
Right.
So you'd have those days that you have to work to catch 5, like I did Saturday because I hadn't found a magic flat yet. Or you have that day where you stumble into all of them.
Yep. Yeah. And I do. I wanted to ask you too. Like I felt like I had a similar deal going, and for me, like the flat I was on I think it was on Tuesday. I think is when I really caught them good. And I went in there and I started throwing out in the middle of this pocket. And when I found them, they wasn't far in. It's like they were just making their way in, and it was like every cast right there for an hour. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but you know what I mean. Like when they get on them flats, like it was every cast for an hour, and then it kind of just went quiet. Well, I just kind of picked the poles up and just eased in, and then I started catching them every cast again. And it was literally like I was following them in there, and like it wasn't really a spot, it wasn't a point, it wasn't a specific clump. It was just like they were just traveling. They were using that little drain just to travel in there. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, and that was the way we were in practice. We found them more towards the mouth of the cove.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the same thing, throwing a chatterbait. But when we got in there in the morning of the tournament, we caught one, a little one. I don't even think it was a keeper, I don't think. And more towards the mouth of it. So we got towards the back of this little stretch of eelgrass in the cove. And that's when we started catching the bigger ones. We had a 5, a 3, and then our third fish was a 6. And then I caught a 4. So, I mean, our first 4 fish, they're good quality fish,
Yep.
Other than the they were all keepers. Our first 4 keepers were real quality fish.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they were at the back of that cove.
Yep, that just goes to show everybody that's listening, like it doesn't necessarily have to be an underwater point or nothing like that to hold fish. Like, during this time of the year and during the fall, like they use those ditches like we do roads. They travel, they use them to go in and out of pockets, to spawn, pre-spawn, post-spawn. They just use them like roads. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be a point or look good on the map to hold a fish.
And that's the third time you said the word ditch. So you just a little deeper,
Yeah, and it's like you know how these pockets are here. They kind of got a little bit of deeper water going in, then just get super flat in the back.
Not a lot of contours.
Yeah, not a lot of contours. It's nothing fancy on the map, but they'll just use those little drains, that's got a little bit deeper water, rather they're headed up from deeper water, and then they just get on that flat and they just roam around. They just swim around and they look for the closest place they're going to go spawn or whatever. And, that's how I look at it. I know a lot of people look at it the same way. I don't know if that's how y'all kind of found that spot in the first place.
Yes, sir. It was exactly. It was just two little ditches on each side of this little cove that the fish were in practice, and then they kind of moved further back into the cove during the tournament Friday.
Yep.
Well, Seth, I really appreciate you taking a little time to call. Congrats on a great bag, your best bag, coming to Guntersville and beating up on a lot of the local guys. I mean, there's a lot of those guys that run this thing that know Guntersville well. I mean, there's a young man, I don't know where he ended up placing. I don't think he had a great day. There's a guy I know fishes for Alabama that he lives around here, Hayden Obar, and dude's a stick. He knows how to catch them on Guntersville, and he struggled. It's just it's anybody's ball game out there sometimes. So,
it is for sure.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I think you told me that you work during the day and go to school in the evenings.
Yes, sir. I go to school in the evening.
How many more years of college you got left?
I have a year and a half left, and I'm in the heating and air conditioning program here at school now, and then I'm going to finish my business degree later on. So I have a year and a half in this program, and I have another year of business to do.
Well, you got a little time left to fish. If you find your way back up here, give us a call.
Yes, sir. I will do.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Yes, thank you.
All right, guys, we just want to say thanks again for Seth coming on and talking to us, telling us a little bit about how he caught them, and try to help you guys if y'all are coming to Guntersville. This is kind of the hot time to come to Guntersville, so for him to get on here and tell y'all a little bit about how he caught them, and it seems to line up with exactly how I've been catching them also, so it seems to be a pattern you can run. But we just want to say thanks for him to coming on, and congratulations, because 29-12, no matter what lake you're on, Fork, Falcon, I don't even care. 29 pounds is a big bag.
That's 30 pounds. As far as I'm concerned. And, the last couple of these, we've kind of gone to the end, and we've said, well, the hot baits of the week are – it's a chatterbait.
Yep, it is.
And a trap and a square bill. It just depends on the day.
Yep.
That's going to change here probably in a couple of weeks, depending on the weather. But, trap, chatterbait, square bill, that frit side, when people say square bill, it's not always one of the little wide wobblers. That frit side is a strong little bait.
That frit side's a bad dude.
Yeah.
It is.
And I break them. I've had a hard time with that. Other people I've talked to say, man, I hadn't broke a one. I'm like, well, I've broke every one. Maybe I'm too hard on them.
Yeah.
Of course, one of them, you jerk it a little bit, just trying to get it loose, and it pops out of the grass, flies up, and hits your boat.
Yeah, hits the trolling motor or something and breaks a bill off.
Yeah, and that's probably my fault because I handled it wrong.
Yep.
But, I think we'll just go on and jump on to our next guest, Mr. Kent Ware. He won the Toyota Series the week before last. I mean, it was a Tuesday through Thursday. So Kent's from Guntersville, retired fisheries biologist, not on Guntersville, but I talked to him. He did some pretty interesting hobbies. Dude traps beavers and sells the pelts and stuff. It's pretty interesting. Maybe he'll get into that. We'll see. But let's see if we can get him on. Kent, are you on with us?
Yes, sir.
All right. We've got Mr. Kent Ware on with us. Kent won a 3-day event on Guntersville just here recently, the Toyota Series. It had 328 boats in it. And he told me when we talked the other day that everybody left that day thought they were fishing for second. And then the smallmouth pattern fell apart. So, Kent, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to be to Guntersville, and just a little background.
I'm a retired fishery biologist. I worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the hatchery program for 25 years. And the last, 19 years of my career, I was stationed over in South Carolina near Charleston and was working predominantly with saltwater species, cobia, redfish, and did a lot of work with Atlantic sturgeon and short-nosed sturgeon. But my earlier part of my career, did a lot of work with bass and stuff, spawning them in ponds and whatnot. And I started fishing the Toyota Series while I was over there stationed in Charleston, and came to Guntersville a couple times when it was on the schedule, and really fell in love with the place, and decided to retire. They offered an early out about 7 years ago, and I decided to do that, and kind of went off the grid, moved to Guntersville, where the phones don't work well and get to fish a lot, do a lot of deer hunting, and I also got a trapping business where I do predator control, coyotes and beavers and stuff like that for landowners, duck clubs, hunting clubs, high fence places, stuff like that.
You'd be pretty popular in North Alabama doing that. There's everybody I know in the Jackson County area is like, who can I get to trap beavers?
We've got a bunch of beavers, that's for sure. They really keep me busy, particularly this time of year. Don't get to fish a lot this time of year.
Well, you picked the right days. You got to fish that, and you were consistent. I think you had 18, and 22 or something like that over the course of that.
Yes, sir. That was exactly right. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you found them, you practice, how you caught them. Just a little bit about that week.
The fish that really hung in there for me, I actually found on an inside weed line with a chatterbait, just slow rolling chatterbait, and the water was pretty muddy, and you just kind of had to crawl it down the inside edge of that weed line. And there was a lot of boats in the area, so I caught 2 fish down the stretch. It wasn't but about a 150-yard stretch. And I caught the 2 fish in practice, and knew they'd probably hold right in that area somewhere because of the weather we had coming. And so got out of there, and I found a few other areas that I used mainly on the first day of the tournament. But once I got back to that area and realized the big key was there was an island out from it, and that kind of held some clearer water in there when everything else got muddy. And of course, there was a lot of floating eelgrass, which I know anybody that fishes Guntersville is familiar with that. And it really, as aggravating as it was, it worked to my favor because there was so much of it. It kept a lot of people off of me. People would try to come in, and they'd get tired of fighting the floating eelgrass, and they'd move on or whatever.
I understand that. And that's an interesting. You just push through it and get a bite here or there when you could get a clean cast. Right.
Yeah, I had to go. Caught my fish on a rattle trap during the tournament, and had to actually go to a heavy action rod and threw it 17-pound fluorocarbon. But you had to use a heavy action rod because of the floating eelgrass. There was no way to get a clean cast. You just couldn't clean your bait with a normal, what I would say is a normal rattle trap rod, a softer action rod. So we lost a lot of fish for that reason, because they would pull off on the heavy action rod. But you really had no choice. You couldn't get a clean cast any other way. And didn't get a whole lot of clean ones anyhow. But anyway, the fish, I guess they were kind of piling in there the whole time, coming into that area, kind of setting up pre-staging for getting ready to spawn. And obviously they knew more about this warming trend than we did, because it was pretty cool during our tournament.
Yeah.
And the water came up, about 2.5 feet over the 3 days, maybe 3 feet by the third day. And what was odd, those fish, like I said, they were on an inside weed line, and there was nothing between them and shore but just mud. And instead of moving on to some of the, moving shallower like they would normally do, the fish actually moved out a little bit as the water came up. And that, allowed us to fish a little bit cleaner.
One thing Guntersville threw out at me years ago is you can kind of throw the textbook out sometimes. So you expect the fish to do one thing, and then they do right the opposite.
Well, the biggest thing on Guntersville is the fishing pressure. I mean, if a man had it all to himself, it would be phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
The fishing pressure changes things so rapidly. You may find the mother lode, but, you may go back tomorrow and somebody's pounded them that afternoon, and you just lose what you had. And they change, they adapt. I mean, they're kind of like hunting deer. You put too much pressure on them, they're going to crawl in something and not move much. And they get, you hate to use the word smart when it comes to fish, but I've handled so many of them and had them in aquariums and tanks and whatnot. They definitely learn, for lack of a better word. They learn not to bite stuff and all that. And I, was trying to stress to my co-anglers, they'd get antsy, we'd get in a lull, and I'm like, man, if you'd ever been with me on a shocking boat and you turn those probes on and you could see all the fish that are in this little stretch of water, it would blow your mind. And, that's one advantage I have, is I've seen that many times, working. You go through an area and the habitat doesn't look that good or whatever, you turn the probes on and fish start floating up everywhere. And then, you go to other areas that look great and that fish may not be there that day. But
why do you think that is? Is it just following bait, or is it just that there's so much habitat on Guntersville now the way the eelgrass is? What's your opinion on that?
That's they've got a lot of places they can be, and they're doing their thing. They're following their seasonal patterns, and they're following food, and getting ready to, right now, of course, they're getting ready to spawn, and they're waiting on the right weather and the right moon and all that, and they'll be rolling up to do their thing. And a lot of people get hung up thinking that bass only spawn one time, but I try to tell people all the time, bass will spawn 3, 4, 5 times during the season. An individual female will come up and lay 3 or 4 or 5 times during the season. When we wanted to make our brood bass spawn in a hatchery pond, all we had to do was, as long as it was within the window of the springtime, all we had to do was raise the water level, and we would get a batch of fish that would spawn. We'd go in and collect the fry. When we wanted them to stop, all we had to do was pull the water level in the pond down, and they'd shut down, which makes it really challenging with these TVA and Corps of Engineer reservoirs. As a bass angler, it's hard to keep up with them a lot of times, particularly when you're a shallow water angler like I am. I don't ever fish out deep. Just learned a long time ago, if I was going to cash checks, I was probably going to be able to touch bottom with my rod.
So do you think that those fish you're talking about spawning multiple times, do you think they're coming back to the same spot? Do you think they're, I've seen fish on bed in May back in the hydrilla days, like way out in the middle of nowhere on the river or on the backside of the river on flats in 6-7 foot of water. And there was, when the grass was coming up, you'd see holes and you go over there and look, well, there's a bass on the bed. Mm-hmm. Right. Do you think those fish, were you in a creek or were you main lake or
we were main lake?
You were main lake. Okay. Flats, yeah. So you think those fish are kind of resident type fish, and they do you think they come back the same place? Do you think they change?
I think they come back to the same area. Probably not the same stump or whatever, because the male selects the location to make the bed, and then she comes up and decides whether she likes it or not. And if she likes it, she'll lay eggs on it. And the next time she comes up, the water level may be totally different, water clarity, whatever. They got to get sunlight to those eggs for those eggs to hatch. And they inherently know all these things. They know what they're looking for. They know what they got to have. And so the variables change where they're going to spawn the next time she comes up. more often than the fish. I would assume if everything remained constant, she would spawn around the same stump every time she came up, if that's where she likes to spawn.
Assuming somebody doesn't jerk her up and take her to Goose Pond.
Oh yeah, no. Exactly.
That's interesting because I knew bluegill kind of spawned like forever.
Right.
And I mean, I've seen bluegill on the bed in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, all the way to September for sure.
And I really didn't know that. I mean, I didn't know that. I felt like it was more of a water temp thing. Of course, that's what gets it started. I just wondered. I didn't know if the water got too hot. That they kind of quit, or God just made them to recreate until they can't recreate anymore.
That's right.
Yeah, they're gonna do their. What happens? They kind of evolve doing it because, like if they come up, you get a warming trend in February, and they come up and lay eggs because everything got perfect. You get a cold front before those eggs hatch, and they fungus up and die. And so it was, it's beneficial for them to come up and lay multiple times. That gives those fry, some of the fry will make it, some won't. The ones that they hit at the right, you may have a perfect spawning temperatures and water level in April, and you get they go up, lay their eggs, you get a huge rain, muddies the water goes up a foot and a half, you lose that nest. So it's beneficial for those fish to come up multiple times, and that's just the way they evolve.
That way they hopefully get at least one good hatch out of it. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And every fish species has those kind of mechanics in their spawning. I mean, redfish spawn in certain areas because the current offshore will take those fry inshore to the right estuary and the right area where they can feed. And every species has got those little idiosyncrasies of why they spawn and how many times they spawn and that kind of thing.
So you pretty much fished the same area for 3 days?
Yeah. Now the first day we moved around a fair amount. Not a ton. I probably hit 3 different areas that first day, and caught fish in all 3 areas. Caught one of my better fish the first day in a totally different area, and then the second day I got in there and really didn't expect the water to be clean. I knew my primary area from the one I ended up making my primary area. I knew it was probably the best of the 3. So started in there the second day, and I mean, the water looked great. It looked better than it did the first day. It looked better than it did in practice. And so, I just decided there's really no sense running around on Guntersville when it's muddy, and it was certainly muddy, because you either run into people or you run into mud. And so I knew there was enough fish there to get a limit, and ended up just pounding it out. And same thing the third day. I wasn't sure I was going to stay there all day, but got in there. The water looked good. The fish kept biting, and actually there was a lot less floating eelgrass that third day, which allowed us to be more efficient and caught better bags. So.
Were your co-anglers rather able to catch some on those days?
Yeah. My first day co-angler, he just had 3. But my second and third day, they both had limits, around 16 plus pounds, pretty good limits.
Yeah, good day. So they probably got some checks out of that. Say,
yeah, they definitely did. I think my final day guy ended up moving up to 3rd, and actually my first day guy, he also made the top 25. And my second day guy, I think he got a pretty good check too. So
I don't know if you've ever been involved in any kind of study about fish travel. I run the Bass Cash Bash. I think I told you that. And, we've released at tournaments ever since this thing started. And people are like, well, what ramps did you let go? Where'd you tag at? And I always put out a list. I mean, I go on social media and I put out, hey, I let them go at, Crow Creek, Mud Creek, Town Creek, Goose Pond, wherever. This weekend, right, I had one caught around Preston Island that I let go at Browns Creek 3 weeks ago.
Is that right?
And I've had them caught all over. And, did that fish take a boat ride with somebody and then not tell us? Maybe. We don't know. But what's your opinion on fish movement?
Some of them react different. That's a traumatic experience for a fish. And we've done a lot of implanting telemetry tags inside a fish's body where we actually did surgeries on them, cut them open and put in Oh, a telemetry tag that was bigger around than a cigar, and sew them back up. And some of those fish would bolt. I mean, they would go out of distance where you never found them again. And you'd have them located when you released them, track them for an hour or whatever, come back the next day, never find that receiver ever again. You never find the transmitter again. Other fish, they kind of homebody down. They don't get that upset, and they just hang around. So, some of them are going to go a long ways, and others don't. And I think it's probably the same thing during with these catch and release tournaments. When they release those fish back out, some of them stockpile around wherever they're released, and a bunch of the other ones they bolt, head for home, or just go on a wild run.
Go somewhere.
Get away from the drama.
Yeah.
That's right. I do want to ask you, how far would they have to travel for y'all not to pick up the receiver? Just to put into perspective how far they will travel.
Probably what we would do, that was mainly like with sturgeon, riverine fish.
Mm-hmm.
And we would run the whole length of the river looking for those fish. And they would have actually left the river, like say the Savannah River is where we did most of it. And that's, 100 miles, whatever. And the fish bailed out, left the river. So
that is crazy.
100 miles, of course. Those are a different animal, but we've had them. This is our fourth year going into it, and when the guy from Louisiana that runs that thing or owns it came over here and was telling me, hey, they're going to go home, and I'm like, well, you're crazy. And we've had them go a long ways. I had them disappear and then show up a year later, and I kind of keep track of where I let them go. I don't ask everybody, where they came from. So, but
right.
As a fisheries biologist, I'm like, well, this would be a great guy to ask. He knows more about it than even though that wasn't what you've done in your last part. I mean, you're familiar. So
I've touched on some of that stuff. There's a lot guys that have done a lot more of it than me, but it's pretty phenomenal what fish will do. You just never know about a fish. That's for sure.
They have to spread out some, or they would only be fishing a handful of places on lakes like Guntersville that have tournaments every day. So, you can put in at Goose Pond and never leave, or put in at State Park and never leave, or Browns Creek and never leave, or, it's pretty interesting. So you're down in South Alabama right now. Is that right?
Yeah. Down on Eufaula. I practiced for a tournament with my wife. With
your wife. Is that your normal fishing partner?
Yeah, either my wife or my daughter. We fish a lot of tournaments together. We fish the Fishers of Men Trail together. And then we fish a lot of the smaller local tournaments and stuff, opens and whatnot.
So you've got, I think you said it's a national championship down there?
Yeah. Fishers of Men National Championships here. You follow. The tournament starts, we all get to fish Thursday and Friday, and then the top 20% will fish on Saturday.
How many boats are in it?
I think it's around 200 boats.
Pretty good crowd. Well, you're on house money. You're fishing for free for a while. So that's
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a rarity in this business.
Yeah, no doubt. That 328 boats turned out really nice for you. The increased payout. I mean,
that was pretty amazing too. That was a lot of boats on the lake at one time, and fortunately, the tournament was during the middle of the week, which was an oddity, but it sure helped us because it kept the local pressure down, and the weather was nasty too, because you know how the middle of the week on Guntersville can be bad too in the spring, but we had nasty weather, so that kind of kept the local pressure off, and wasn't a bunch of weekend tournaments and stuff like that going on at the same time.
We were talking earlier about when it gets 70 degrees and plus in March, there's a lot of people forget they have jobs.
Yeah,
that's right.
And just go fishing.
The first time my wife and I came to Guntersville was in, I think, 2011. We came there for actually it was a Fishers of Men National Championship, and I had never seen that many bass boats on a lake in a community. Nothing. It was just blew my mind that there was that many bass boats in one area, on one lake, and it was also amazing how the economy at that time was pretty rough in a lot of parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And how around this lake, you could just tell it was just thriving because of the fishery. And it really was an eye-opening experience, and really fell in love with the lake from that time on. And it's crazy that lake can keep pumping out the fish that it pumps out. But of course, it's all because of the habitat, the grass.
Even though it's a different grass than we had, well, even back then, when you're talking about 2011, I mean, it's there was some eelgrass maybe, but not like that. It still keeps pumping it out.
Pumping them out. Yeah. People fuss about the eelgrass, but I promise you, it's a native species of grass, and it's certainly better than not having any grass at all. So we got to thank our blessings. It's if you've ever fished a reservoir where you had grass and then it goes away, which I know a lot of people that grew up on Guntersville saw that at least once in their life.
I have.
That is not a good thing.
No, it's good for about a year when the fish don't have anywhere to hide, and then
nowhere to hide, but then it crashes, and you don't get any recruitment. The little ones don't make it because as soon as they hatch, they get gobbled up by bluegill or whatever.
Well, they definitely got plenty of places to hide now.
Absolutely.
That eelgrass grows. I've seen it a lot deeper than they say it grows. I mean, 14, 15 foot. Do you think that much grass out there has just really spread the fish out on Guntersville, which you found a group of them clearly, but we were talking earlier about, a lot of people just catch one here or there, and then somebody may run into a group. But you think it really spreads them out because there's so much cover?
Yeah, I think it does for sure. And for whatever reason, I guess the winter wasn't that bad this year overall. The grass did not really die back very much, and so the fish are pretty spread out. They're always pretty spread out on Guntersville, but this year they seem to be really spread out. And again, I was lucky to find a concentration that I could live off of for a couple of days.
Yeah, no doubt, and that you basically got to do it by yourself. Yeah.
Well,
somewhat by yourself.
Don't think that. I was biting my tongue the whole time, and I don't do well in a crowd. The people were reasonable. They were not brutal like they can be. They gave us some space and didn't have just very few people that got in the way. So
that is not always the
hard.
case.
No, it's not, and it's hard when there's that kind of money on the line. And I mean, they were watching us catch them. I get it, man. I get it. They wanted to be there where we were at, but for the most part, they gave us enough space. Now I had to squeeze down my area, believe me, both days. I mean, I had about 3 or 4 waypoints along there that I was able to work the first day, and I never got to work half of that the second 2 days, just because you knew if you moved, you'd lose it.
Right, yeah.
So I had to stay in a lot smaller area than I wanted to. Anyway, it worked out.
I do want to ask you, I don't know if it would show it on here or not. I'm looking at the paper showing the winnings, but, for those people who don't know, if you fish the Toyota Series, if you have a Phoenix that's, I think, 2 years old or newer, you win an extra, $35,000. Did you actually win that, or do you not run a Phoenix?
No, I don't run a Phoenix.
You don't run one?
I'm running an older Triton. No.
Okay.
I would like to get in a Phoenix, but then I'm in a position now that we're looking at boats, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to swim.
You can make a pretty good down payment with that. Well, my Uncle Sam's going to get his share, but
Don't lose sight of the fact my transmission went out in my truck a couple of days before the tournament started, so I'm also in the market for a truck.
I was going to say, if you've gotten that fixed already, it's a miracle, because from what I've heard, it takes forever to get anything fixed right now.
I actually did get it fixed, but it wasn't cheap. So.
No.
But you can't shake your head at $80,000 no matter what. But if you're like me, I would hate to think that I got a Triton and I could have won $35,000 more.
Oh yeah. That hurt. And I've been wanting to get a Phoenix for several years. I just haven't been able to swing it.
Yes, sir. Did you know you had a shot at winning going into the tournament?
No,
you didn't.
Not at all. No, sir. And that's the ones you win, is the ones when you have no idea, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he told me on that second or that third day, everybody thought we were fishing for second.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But you all, when conditions in the spring, how fast things can change. And I really don't know what happened to that smallmouth bite, whether somebody got in his way or whether the river got blown out or what. But, I knew that was a possibility. Both things could happen. People could get in his way or the eelgrass could start going down the river and mess him up just like it can anybody else. So.
There wasn't anything sitting still very long below that tail race that last day for sure, because that way we got 3 inches of rain that night or something before 4 or something. It was a lot. So
yeah, it changed a lot of things quick.
How in the world, this is not fishing related, how in the world does a fisheries biologist get into trapping beavers?
I was a trapper long before I was a fishery biologist. I've been trapping since I was 7 years old.
Okay, so you just grew up doing it.
Yeah, just something. I grew up in Florida, and we really were very limited in the equipment we could use. You could only use box traps and snares in Florida, and so I think because it was so aggravating and challenging that it just was something that stuck. I think if I'd have grown up in Alabama where you had good regulations and could use, the equipment you need to use, it may not have stuck, but things that are hard, it's kind of like bow hunting. I just hunt deer with a bow and arrow, and, things that are challenging, I guess, are the things you love the most.
It's like marriage. Trey over here doesn't know anything about that.
I hope I don't for a while. I like to fish too much.
Yeah.
Well, you got to call a bunch to find the right one. That's the key to marriage right there.
That's right. Well, I don't do much culling fishing. I ain't won very much in my life, so I need to practice that.
Well, Mr. Ware, I appreciate you coming on, taking time to talk with us. I've enjoyed talking with you on and off the air. Best of luck to you down there at Eufaula. Go ahead and see if you can't win a little bit more that covered that transmission, and you can just take what's left of that 80 after taxes and apply it to that Phoenix you want.
That sounds real good. We're trying to figure something out over here. We'll just have to see how it goes.
All right. Well, thank you much. Good luck down there, and hopefully you win something here local. We'll talk to you again.
All right, guys. Y'all have a great day.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Well, we'd like to thank Mr. Ware for coming on. That was interesting talk. Mm-hmm. And when I heard he was a fisheries biologist, I thought, we can listen to him talk about catching fish on a rattle trap. That's great because, just knock a microphone over while we're talking.
Got so excited.
Got so excited. But I thought he would throw out some stuff that everybody's not going to throw out talking about. And we could sat there and talk to him for an hour about different fishing related stuff. And when I first called him to talk to him about being on here, we sat there and talked fishing for 45 minutes because I was really interested in hearing his thoughts on the grass and the spawns. And he didn't bring up the fact that the bass spawned multiple times. And, I think I kind of knew that, but I didn't really. It's good information.
Yeah, it is.
Good information. So we've got not quite as much going on the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure why, unless people have just kind of trended away because the weather's been so unstable. It hadn't been quite as much. This next weekend, you've got the Wildcats have started up. You've got a Honeycomb Wildcat that started last week. Good group of guys. You normally got to catch them. That goes out of the back ramp at Honeycomb. NBT out of Waterfront. You got another club tournament at All Reds. Not a lot going on that Saturday. Trey's going to be fishing at Smith Lake.
Yep.
And it's going to be cold.
Cold. It's been 80 degrees, typical ABT fashion. Thank you, Kay Donaldson, and I can say that because I consider her a friend. But, typical ABT fashion, it's been sunny and 80 and wearing shorts and a T-shirt every day, fishing on Guntersville and forgetting I have a job to fishing ABT on Smith, and the high on Saturday is anywhere from, I've heard, high 30s to low 40s to, I heard upper 40s, but I'm going to go with the worst, and it's probably going to be 38 degrees is the high, and I think, 26 was the low?
20 here I think it may be 23. Down there it may be a little better.
So, I'm going to have ice in my guides, and the fish are thinking they're about to spawn, and then now.
Y'all just did that. But, hey, at least it's not Neely Henry.
Yeah, you're right. Anything other than Neely Henry, I think I'll be okay.
What will those spotted bass do when it gets that cold?
It just really depends. Like I talked about earlier, I think it got so warm so quick that the fish haven't caught up with it enough already. I'm sure a lot of the listeners have been watching the MLF on Smith, and none of them are catching them really pre-spawn from what I'm not the
you
smartest.
Think they're still out. No,
and I'm not the smartest in the world, but like a lot of them guys are catching them in 40 feet. That ain't pre-spawn. You know what I mean? They're not even moved up to the bank, roaming and that's how I think as of right now, I think what's his name, Dustin Cannell won.
Did he win? He was winning early. He was killing it early.
Yeah, I think he ended up winning, and he caught them all out super deep, and it's just so I don't think it'll hurt them as bad as what I think. I think it'll hurt the fishermen more than it will the fish. Is
that going to be a live scope game down there?
I think so. I wouldn't have said that 2 weeks ago with it getting warmer and water temp rising, but I just feel like they haven't caught up with enough. So if they had and they're up there in the dirt and then it gets super cold, I think it would hurt them. But seeing the way them guys are catching them right now, I don't think it'll hurt those deep fish as bad as it will the shallow fish.
Yeah, it'd take a long time for water that deep, the water column itself to warm up.
I will go ahead and say I think there's a good possibility with it being that cold all week and on Saturday that spots will win that one.
You do?
I do. Just because those largemouth, when they get up shallow like that, when the water temp, because you know as well as I do, when it's been this hot and then it's going to get that cold, the surface temp's going to drop a lot. I mean, being 26 in the morning, it's going to drop, I don't even know, probably 4 or 5 degrees.
It may, yeah, depending on how many days it's cold before you get there.
Yep,
so,
and I
the
think
rain.
And the cold rain, so it's gonna change things up. And them largemouth at Smith are finicky as it is, so it's gonna hurt them. I do think. I ain't saying you might have 4 spots and 1 4-pound largemouth, but I don't think anybody can go out there and win with just largemouth.
What's it going to take? 17, 18 pounds?
I got to studying before I come up here today. I got to studying, and like Jesse Wiggins is probably the best that there ever was on Smith and will ever be. And I think I did, if I did the math right, and I wasn't in honors in school, and I'm sure all y'all know that by the way I talk, but if I did the math right, I think his biggest 5 today was about 12.5 pounds. And that's Jesse Wiggins. So,
right.
And it hasn't even really gotten cold yet. It's just starting, so it should probably, in theory, probably make it a little bit more tough. But also, you got to think, Jesse's a smart guy. He's not looking for 5 real big ones when everybody's catching, pound 8, 2-pounders and racking up 60 pounds. So I do think, I'm sure he could have caught more than that if he wanted to, but that just goes to show you they're not catching a big one every now and again, really. It's all a lot of smaller fish. So I
3-pounders are a premium down there, aren't they?
They are, and I think I'd be willing to say 9 to 10 pounds gets a check, and I bet 15 to 16 wins.
15, 16.
15, or I'll say 15 to 17, because if you get one big bite, push you up there to 17 pounds. But and there's always somebody's going to get a big bite in a one-day tournament.
And the ABT is full of hammers.
It is.
There's a lot of those guys fishing BASS. And
I was about to say, I don't know if you saw the stat. I don't know if I could pick it up on my phone real quick or not. Let's see if I can not hold this up right here.
There were a few of them
fishing the Classic. So, yeah, Kay Donaldson posted right here that she said, did you know that 5 of the top 25 in the Bassmaster Classic are former ABT anglers? This kind of stood out to me. That just goes to show what fishes this trail. Kyle Welcher, Justin Hamner, Joey Nania, Wes Logan, Brock Mosley, and then they were in the Classic, but these didn't make the top 25. Mark Frazier, Joshua Strachner, and Shane Powell. So that just goes to show you it's full of hammers, you know.
Maybe we'll get Trey Swindle's name in there next year.
I really hope y'all can just not be talking to me on a Monday one day so I can be at the Classic.
I guess I'll give you a pass on Monday, but if you make it, don't forget us over here.
I won't. I promise. I might for that week. I might be on top of the world. But.
Yeah. You can, when you get up there, you can just mention, hey, this little podcast that I do over there on Guntersville. It's just Guntersville mostly, but don't, he's pretty nice people.
That's right. So, that's right.
We get a time change over the next 2 weeks before we do our next one. Mm-hmm. When that happens, some of your Thursday nighters and afternoon tournaments start kicking up. Mm-hmm. I think the time changes. I think we get the time change. Doesn't the time change the 13th, so. The 12th, and the 13th? And so I think Thursday the 17th starts the little Wildcat out of Roseberry. Mm-hmm. Mitch Smith puts that on. One of the fish that I tagged at the tournament he put on for me got caught by the ABA guy that I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. He caught that fish in Roseberry, and it was one of the ones that I tagged there. He said it was about a mile from where I tagged it. So it may have gone home. It may have just gone, found somewhere that looked like home. Mm-hmm. Again, the next 2 weekends are not as busy. You think you got one of the ABAs. That's the solo deal out of Goose Pond. You got Honeycomb that next weekend, the 19th, and then a Swearingen Volunteer Fire Department fundraiser tournament out of Waterfront. Mm-hmm. And then a Heartland Anglers that Sunday before you and I get back together again. Assuming nothing changes, that Monday, the 21st, our guest, at least one of them, is going to be a gentleman named Tom Sturgeon, who has put together an organization called Team Vet that is set his goal. He is a disabled vet. He's deaf. He's actually going to come sit here with us. So he said he could read lips better than he could read stuff on his phone as we talk to it. Mm-hmm. They're having a tournament in April, the 9th, I believe. And, it's going to be out of waterfront. It's going to be big. They're going to have fireworks. They're going to have helicopters. His organization, he's got a cool story. I don't want to mess it up. He's going to tell it. But, his organization is set up to help vets that are dealing with depression and those that slip through the cracks. Mm-hmm. He's spending a lot of time, his own personal money and, raising money to try to help. That's a great cause. So, Paul had put me in touch with him and said, "Hey, I want you to talk to him." And I talked to him. I said, "Hey, he's going to come. He's going to come sit down with us for a little bit. I think that'll be great." Yeah. This weekend, the water was clearing up. Wasn't too bad. Mm-hmm. Plenty of floating grass.
Always.
And as you said.
Yep.
Water temps, Main Lake, 52, 54. Went up in the backs of some creeks, mid-60s. Yep. But there wasn't a lot of fish in that particular spot. They were all down there where you were.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think sometimes the water gets ahead of the fish, which is probably a good thing with the fact that it's about to get stupid cold again for a few days. Yep. So first week of the Bass Cash Bash, we've had 4 tags caught. All of them were registered. One of them didn't have a bonus T-shirt. Know that guy phone calls, which I don't believe.
Yeah.
There was 328 boats of college kids here for a week. Good and well somebody caught one of them, and they just didn't call and tell us because we'd make fun of them.
That's right.
So, but it wasn't you. You're registered.
I ain't getting in that again. Trey ain't doing that again.
Yeah.
Trey's a slow learner, but I'm here now.
Yeah. No longer making that rookie mistake. So it's probably after this cold front, we'll get what we call our second spring. Mm-hmm. We're on our 3rd winter right now.
Yeah.
So we're about to be. Baits will probably start changing a little bit over the next couple of weeks. Is it going to be plastic dragging time?
I think so. I mean, I think a lot of them are headed up to spawn now, or starting to at least. But with this cold front, it's going to knock them in the head pretty good. I mean, it's gonna slow things down. But when it starts warming back up again, I think they're going to be in full spawning mode, and you ain't going to be able to catch them lining nothing. Like we talked to Seth Slanker, and he told us that he could reel that chatterbait as fast as he could and catch them, and it's just not going to be that way no more. They're going to be.
They just quit chasing. They
just quit. They get locked down on bed and looking for a bed, and they have one thing on their mind, and that's spawning. And they don't care what you throw by them. They just don't. So it's going to slow down, but I think the fishing will still be good. And my favorite time of the year is coming up, which is post spawn. So I
agree. No, and I really like it when you get kind of in between. You got some still coming, you got some coming out. You're sitting in the same spot and you catch one that's a rail that's already spawned out, and then you catch one that's fat.
Pre-spawned.
I mean, those fish you were catching, there'll be some more coming behind them.
Yep. And that's what the other day me and Luke were talking about that. Like, we took some pictures, and I was sending them to him, and like one would be, you could tell it looked like it was spawned out, and then the next one would be like just fat as could be, and you're like, now he's pre-spawn. Or she's pre-spawn, whatever. But it's just
crazy. You think
crazy.
you had a spawned out fish the other day?
I do. I mean, it was skinny as a rail, like it was, which I guess it's hard to say. Sometimes fish are just in bad shape, but the way where he was and like what we were doing, I fully think that it was spawned out.
May very well. Guntersville's always had some fish that did their thing when they really weren't supposed to.
Yep.
Which Mr. Ware just touched on a minute ago.
Yep.
They're going to come up several times and till they get it right. Hopefully they get it right 2 or 3 times. So.
Yep, and I think it's crazy for people who don't know or don't fish Guntersville a lot. And I think you can back me up on this because, like you said, you hadn't found nothing like that, and you fish up the lake more, and I fish down the lake more.
Right.
And it's really crazy to think that on one lake, just within 10 or 15 miles upriver or downriver or whatever, fish are just doing something completely different.
Sometimes it's one creek.
Yep, sometimes it's one creek. I mean, they could be down the lake 5 miles, they could be full-on spawn, and then up the lake, they're just now pre-spawn. So it's really crazy to think that in one little stretch of the river, it could change that much. And usually upriver goes before downriver, typically. But it seems like now it's kind of backwards.
It's the world we live in these days. Everything's backwards right now. We thought we were about to have the first normal summer post-COVID and forever, and now we're going to have gas prices that are ridiculous.
Yep.
What, as a young man that's fishing a lot of different tournaments, what kind of effect is this high gas that's probably gone up today? I haven't looked. What's that going to have? You going to change the way you fish?
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm thinking about leaving 2 days earlier than I normally do and driving 50 to save gas on the way there because I struggle as it is. And with it getting as high as it is, I mean, it's going to put a hurting on some folks. It really is doing what I'm doing. And, people travel and fish the Opens or the Toyota Series or whatever it may be, the BFLs. But you're going to see a lot of guys just back out just because, gas prices not too long ago were, $3.15, $3.25, and then now it's up close to $5 in some places. So you're almost doubling your gas price. That means if you spend, I would spend $1,500 going to an Open, like in gas, in the boat and truck, getting there, getting back, whatever. So now you can just say I'm going to spend $3,000. Well, that's
a lot of money. I don't care who you are.
It doesn't matter. It don't matter who you are. They don't care. That's a lot of money to just spend. That's not even counting your hotel room. So for me, it's kind of scary because I didn't think I could do as much fishing as I could this year anyways. I'm lucky to have the sponsors that I have that help me out. Paul at GTO, North Alabama Mortgage, the Direction. But I'm lucky and I'm thankful for that. But also, it's they can only do so much too, right?
Oh,
so,
sure.
I got my battles I got to face, and I'm not really looking forward to it. Cause
I don't know if it's going to get any better anytime soon, man.
I think it's going to do nothing but get worse for a while. And
I drive around a lot. I'm a real estate appraiser. I drive circles around 2 counties every day, and I drive a truck.
That's right. That's right. Like I said, for those of you who don't know, I work at GTO at Waterfront part-time. I work for North Alabama Mortgage full-time, and so this weekend I decided to actually come to work at Waterfront Friday and Saturday, and I drove by a gas station. I don't know why, I just remember this one, but I saw it was $3.15. I was like, it's $3.15 there, so I get to work, work, close up, go home, come back to work on Saturday morning. It was $3.89 overnight.
Ouch.
Yep.
That's rough. I'm looking forward to hearing about your Smith Lake event. I hope your name's up there at the top. The ABT podcast I mentioned, she mentioned you in something. I think it was because y'all didn't do very good at Neely Henry, and she was expecting you to.
Yeah.
But
big old whopping zero.
You were on her list of people that knew the lake. That
Thank you, Kay Donaldson, for that, even though I obviously had no idea what I was doing.
Well, it's cold and muddy. Well, let's try not even mention Neely Henry again.
Yeah, let's just forget that tournament.
We added, as an experiment, a Google voice line that we can take texts to. If anybody listening has something they would like to hear us talk about, text us at 256-677-4224. If there's any young ladies looking for a man, Trey's single. He's probably not happy about me saying that. He's over here turning kind of red, but I'll play matchmaker. I'll forward him the text, and
I'm just glad I ain't going to my phone because I'm sure there's some guys that I know that would really play with me on that. So just all my buddies realize it's not going to me; it's going to Pat. So
but it's going to a special line set up just for you, Trey.
I'm sure it'll make its way to me, but just know you ain't interrupting my Friday night. It's going to be Pat's.
Again, we would love to hear feedback. What you like, what you don't like. We're still kind of new at this. We really don't know what we're doing. We've had phenomenal feedback. We're thankful for that. That number is 256-677-4224. If we left your results off, we're sorry. The Bass and Big G website crashed the other day for some unknown reason. GoDaddy finally got it fixed. They had to restore a backup. I got a couple of results I hadn't got back up there. Most all the results are up or will be in the next day or so. That's at bassandbiggg.com. Tournament calendar there. If you enjoyed what you're hearing, tell your friends. Give us a like on Facebook at Bass and Big G. Follow us on the podcast app of your choice or on YouTube. We really appreciate you tuning in. Till next time in a couple of weeks. Have a great day.